Air conditioner is fixed. We started about, I think 11 o'clock. I'm not exactly sure. We just got done just a few minutes ago, and it's like 7:45 a.m. It took us all night long. But it was an interesting problem. It was interesting, I'll tell you, because see, I was going to replace the PCM, and that was going to cost me $129. And then to flash it, well, if I went to Chevy, it was going to cost $75. And if I did Tony's shop, didn't know. He didn't give me a price yet, so I don't know how much it was going to be. Called another guy that usually works on my cars, but he couldn't do it. So thank God, because that's not what it was. You won't believe what it was. Man, you won't believe. Okay, so the first thing, we decided to undo the insulation on the wire harness, okay? We were going to start at the beginning where the air compressor is and work our way back and try to find where was this positive and negative touching and why wasn't there a ground, okay? Because it should have been a ground, plus we have voltage in the ground. So we need to figure out those two answers, okay? So first one we found. It took us, I don't know, not a whole long time, I don't think. An hour or so. Anyway, Andrew was pulling on this wire and it broke off, and that's because it wasn't together anymore. You know, it actually got burnt because the positive went down the ground wire. It actually did burn, and we were looking all over. We was trying to get rid of the continuity, you know, when we was testing. And everything we did, it wouldn't turn it off until finally that wire. When we tested, we found out that that's the wire it was supposed to go to. Okay, so cool. We had a ground. But Andrew wanted to actually take the wire, hook it up to the loop again, and put it on the engine. I said, no. If we do that, it better be our last resort. And because I know that it was going to fry the wiring in certain places. There are certain places where it's supposed to burn through anyway. There are safety part that's on the wire harness. A lot of people don't know about that, but a lot of people do. I've known about that for a long time. But anyway, I didn't want to have to replace those, okay? I forgot what they're called, but they're a little thicker, but they're made out of a special metal that will bend and break or burn through, and that way it saves the wiring. I didn't want to do that. Plus, we could have fried something else, you know. You should not take a live wire and attach it to the ground of the car. Andrew thinks that it would cross it out, and it would travel through the frame back to the battery. Okay, so he said, okay, you do your thing first, then we'll do the other. So I end up unplugging everything we could think of, undoing the wire, the black one, and tracing it down, and using the continuity tester to keep testing it, looking for it. And finally, it left the engine. We was going to have to go underneath the engine. Okay, so I undid that harness. It looked pretty sick, man. It was like a surgery. It was all over the place, all over the ground. You know, the insulation and they had taped it up so well. They did. But anyway, we got down to 3 solenoids. Okay, and each time we would test it for voltage, there was voltage in that wire. So then we unplugged all 3 of those, when actually we should have just done one at a time. But we undid them, and I looked at it and I noticed oil. And then when I looked inside the solenoid, I saw oil. So I said, I believe that oil is what's allowing the electricity to go through. So there's no short in the wire at all. It's actually in the solenoid. Well, it's actually just, you know, lube. The oil can allow the electricity to jump. So I cleaned it with carburetor cleaner. Then I cleaned out the inside with the washcloth. And then we end up putting it back in. And there was no voltage. In fact, there was no voltage when I pulled off the 3 sensors. We had finally stopped the voltage going through the ground wire. But which one? Because we pulled all 3 solenoids. Which one? Well, we did pull one, actually, so it was only 2. There was only 2 that it could have been. And anyway, once we plugged them back in, there was no more voltage. And then we grounded the other wire like it was supposed to, and we had our ground, and the air conditioner worked. Thank God. I'm glad that we're done. That was a lot of hours. Oh my goodness. And I also put on my sweatsuit so I could sweat. But luckily I stopped. I didn't sweat all night, you know, because it started cooling off outside. And that's a good thing, because you could really get down. You know, you could lose 8 pounds easily within so many hours. So anyway, I'm just glad it's done. And it didn't cost me a whole lot. Now I'm going to have to buy new insulation. And I got electric tape so I can tape it back up. We did end up pulling one wire off, unfortunately. When he was pulling up, it pulled it out. So I got to buy a new end for one of my solenoids. But it was just a one wire. It was definitely not shorting it out. It wasn't. It had to be a two wire to short it out. That way, when the oil got in there, it went across. You can't have one doing that. You see? So I knew that wasn't the one. Okay, so anyway, that's it. I'm glad now the car's back to the way it should be, okay? You guys have a good one. Take care. Oh, and see, Tony was right. He said that it should burn out if it was touching the ground, and it did. It did at that loop. All right, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless.